On?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's, there I am. Okay. And I'm going to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. We have 4 people present. Oh, 5. Supervisor Turk just joined us. All right, we have a 17-point agenda. Was it properly posted, notified? All right, so would anyone, right, motion by Frank, second by Severson to approve the agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Item number 4, approve minutes of the June 3rd, 2022 public safety meeting. Everyone get a chance to look those over? I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve.
Motion by Frank, second by Voice. Any discussion on the minutes from June? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Item number 5, corner updates.
So I do not have a corner update from June, but I did get one from May a while back after the meeting. So I'll read that one. Handled 8 cases in May, causes of death as follows: 4 heart-related, 2 cancer deaths, 1 accident, 1 suicide. We have 6 cases pending for final autopsy or tox results, and he is still looking for additional part-time staff. He said he continues to handle all weekday evening calls from 5 p to 5 a, and Chief Deputy Ruth Bristol covers weekdays from 5 a to 5 p.
Okay. Sounds like they're having fun. All right, that brings us to item number 6, clerk of court updates.
Good morning. I know that you all have received and I'm sure read the clerk of courts report. So I'm just going to cut to the most exciting thing today and in Richland County history, not just court history. I'd like to introduce Judge Lisa McDougall. Hey, hey. And we are very excited to have her on board. We're very excited that she's now been sworn in. She's an official judge, and you guys are all invited to her formal investiture, her public investiture on July 11th at 2 o'clock. I see Jen's got some printed out invites. I think Derek has forwarded to you the invite I sent to him for the board. So, and you're free to share that with the folks from your town boards as well. That's information that I don't have to be able to easily forward, but we would like folks that are in the service positions throughout the county to be represented. We have law enforcement, we'll have fire chiefs from the area, county board members, mayors, that sort of, service clubs. So Lisa will be serving the court, and we want everybody who serves the county to watch her be sworn in, and not to put too fine a point on it, but also our first female judge. It gave me chills to see her be sworn in and just sit there and think about what that means for a lot of counties around us have already, they're already to that point, and that's not what makes her special just because she's a woman, but it's time that we have more women in leadership positions. So very happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys got any questions about anything, and do you want to say anything?
I'm sure you guys are just relieved to have it all figured out, so you know.
It's not done yet. There's a 2-week judicial mentorship. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So, like my first regular day is going to be Monday, July 18th in terms of presiding over cases and doing sort of the regular thing. Until then, I'll be shadowing other judges in the area and sitting with them for a while. It's sort of what they do whenever there's a new judge that takes the bench. But I just want to say I'm really happy to be here. And I'm happy to be here this morning. I'm happy to be in the county. I'm happy to be starting a new gig. And I really look forward to working with all of you and getting to know everything and being having a positive impact here. So thank you.
Welcome. All right. Might as well move right into probate if you want to add anything to that.
So I too am very excited to have Judge Lisa McDougall joining us. We are not finished. We still do have our reserve judges, Jennifer Day and Michael Kirchman, for the next couple of weeks. So I do feel like, we still have a little ways to go, but we are getting through it, and it's going pretty well. So for the most part, and I feel like we are definitely making progress. So excited for the future. You did not receive a report from me because at last month's meeting, it was just a couple days into the month. And so I was able to receive the reports from the county clerks, with today just being July 1st. So I think I too will join Stacy in just having the reports be a month behind, and go that route just to make it a little bit easier on everyone. So there's no financial report for you this month, but then prior to next month's meeting, you'll be receiving through the end of June. So you can see where we're at with that. I think, usually the budget is pretty good this time of year. It's always towards the end of the year with the attorney fees that it gets to be a little bit more crunched. So having said that, just to make a note on the budget, I would like to make a comment. So at the end, Judge Sharp spent very, very little on things for him. There are some things with the new judge coming on board that I think there were maybe some requests. So I just, for a new chair possibly, and some things, and I have a line item that says for new equipment. But right now there's, we have the register and probate budget, and we have the clerk of courts budget, but there's not a judge's budget at all. So we've been, as far as supplies in the past, because we've been trying to be very conservative on our spending. We knew the position that the county's in. There hasn't been much spending. So anything for the courtroom, anything as far as extras, paper, all those supplies, anything for the judge, anything for either of our offices, come out of either Stacy's budget or my budget. There's not a judge's budget right now. So I know there's some committee members that are new here, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that there may be some things. And we are continuing to purchase chairs for the courtroom, the black chairs that actually go in the gallery. So those are coming out of our budgets. So, it's not just our offices, it's the courts. We're trying the best we can to work together with all of us, but I just wanted you to be aware of that as committee members, that there might be a little bit more here in the future. So, and Stacy has been, purchasing chairs little by little as budgets allowed for the gallery out of her office budget.
Entire $1,000 per year equipment fund. The chairs for the courtroom, and chairs is what you think it would. And so Jen has 1,200 in her new equipment fund. Going to use 800 of that. For the chairs, I'm going to use all 1,000 of mine. And because she's also going to use that in her budget to buy the judges, to buy a judge a decent chair in chambers, office chair. And so Yeah, we're, other type, like ink cartridges and things, like we've explained before, the state provides all three of us with, computers and printers and everything that we use, but we have to buy the paper and the ink cartridges, which are the most expensive. And so it would help if the judge had, you know, a small modest office supplies and maybe courtroom expense budget. I know.
Sure it would.
I know everybody's like, oh gosh, where's that money come from? Yeah, we operate on a shoestring as it is, so, and y'all know that,
Do know that.
so I don't think it's a huge ask. And, you know, it serves your purpose.
Yes.
So I would request, Judge, that you go and all of you go through the office. It's a new day. It's a new day. It's a new time. Go through, see what you need, make a list, get us what you need because things are different. You're going to run the office a little different. It may need to be configured a little different, but we need to know what those things are so we can help make those changes. So if you could come up with that list, come up with that plan, I think that would be a big benefit to us. All right.
And
Yep.
the only other thing I would like to say is I would really like to thank the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Porter, Chief Jones, and all of the emergency management. We did go through the active trainer. I have never been through one here in Richland County. I thought it was valuable. I thought it was time well spent. And I just really appreciated them doing that.
I didn't know that happened, so.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Make sure you're talking to your mic. It's on. It was on. Towards you is on.
It's on.
It's on.
Where's the blue light? I just have a question for Stacy. Going through her bills, I see that she has charges for probate fees, register and probate fees. I'm wondering how that goes with the probate budget, why there's two probate things here. I'm new, I'm just trying to figure all this stuff out.
Okay, so those, the probate fees, so are you talking about as they are shown in the county clerk's reports or in the ones that we run from our system? So I send you both. So a few years ago, the register and probate prior to Jen wanted her own budget, but only the expenditures part of it. And so all of the circuit court revenue, including for any probate fees and revenues that are brought in through the probate office for the services that they provide and can charge for, those things are all contained in the circuit court budget. The county board did not separate out the revenues when they separated the former register and probate's budget. She simply wanted her own budget, so if she wanted to purchase specific office supplies, she didn't have to coordinate with anybody else. And pretty much that's the only reason. And yeah, so the revenues for both of our offices are in the report that's attached to mine.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else from probate? Right?
So there may be a little bit of duplication in my reports. So we're under the circuit court umbrella. So on my report, when I submit that, I also submit a revenue sheet specifically just on the probate. So that would be a bit of duplication maybe on Stacy's and mine, just so you're aware of that they're not double. But I'm also reflecting specifically broken out just what is brought in through the register and probate office.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, that brings us to the district attorney. I don't see her online. She's not in the room. So I guess we'll assume all is good in the district attorney's office. Item number 9, emergency management? Okay, so we'll skip that and maybe come back. All right. All right, that brings us to the sheriff's department. What?
Thank you. Back up.
All right, that brings us to approved monthly invoices and other sheriff department reports.
Does anybody have any questions about the invoices?
And the bills.
I have a couple. Item number 15, Motorola Solutions new car fund for 10,000
Uh,
cars for Motorola.
that is squad cameras.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
good to know. All right, thank you. The other one. So, saving tower rent, is that monthly? Twice a year. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Great, thank you.
Any other questions on the bills? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Frank, second by Boyce. Any other discussion on the bills? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those are approved. Moving on to, you want to go to your report?
Yes.
Put the number of inmates housed in our county.
So yeah, number of jail bookings was up again in June, 72. Average number of inmates housed in the county is 34.
So that means we're at the higher staffing level
Yes.
requirements.
So what's the last 2 weeks? On the weekend, we went into mandatory overtime. We have alleviated some of the overtime costs where we've pulled a patrol deputy from the road and they covered in the jail. Some of our patrol deputies are still certified jailers. And some of them are willing to volunteer to go in there and help out. So we've been augmenting and removing some of the overtime that way.
Is something going on that there's so many people in the jail?
Well,
Summer? Is it just a summertime thing?
it's a summertime thing, and I've been saying this a lot, but we're back to pre-COVID days. Like that's done and over with. Aaron and I have been crunching call numbers and stuff like that, and we're already exceeding our numbers as compared to 2019 at this time. So we did the numbers yesterday as of June 30th. We're exceeding the June 30th numbers for 2019. So we're back to the way it used to be.
I don't remember there being in the mid 30s in the jail, even in 2018 and 2019. Was that our average census?
I'd have to go back and look at those numbers because I haven't looked at those yet. But I would say probably low 30s would be, if I were to guess, that would probably be low 30s.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of remembering like 28 to,
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Monthly complaints down slightly, 249. Traffic citations, 53. That's staying pretty steady. Transports for the month, 5. And average number on electronic monitoring is 5. Total calls for service in the dispatch center were 496. 100 calls for EMS, 121 calls for the police department. Additionally, I guess I can talk about this at another point, but we did do the courthouse active shooter training. I guess part 1, hoping to schedule part 2 where we do actually live drills in the near future.
Good, that's really good.
And
Thank you for
then,
moving so quickly on that.
yeah, yep.
We just talked about it.
And then one other thing is that we have started the lieutenant process. So we may, for a future agenda item, may be looking at scheduling an interview with the panel or with the committee for that.
What is your target date for filling that?
Mid-August.
Okay.
Oh, yes, and we have, we've made 3 full-time hires since the last meeting. We hired Jerry Kratzenberg as patrol deputy, Tanya Galston as a jailer, and Isaac Jones is now a full-time jailer, was previously a part-time jailer.
All right. Do you have a question? No. Oh, okay. All right. So they must be already training and
Already training, yep.
All right. Guys don't goof around, right?
Yep.
All right. Any other thing from reports? I think that's it, right? All right. So then that brings us to item number 11, the county emergency response plan, which is that there. Is that you?
So I think what that was meant to be was more the, you had wanted me to come up with a plan for active shooter training.
Right. Then you already.
So,
Implemented your
so we
plan.
did, we've done the active shooter training, but like I said, that's part one of hopefully, I guess, a bigger push. Because I talking with Stacy, it had been years since we had done that presentation. And Jennifer said she hadn't seen it before. So I think the push would be to get doing this kind of stuff more often, and hopefully, I think where we hit the hiccup in the past was when we went to look at doing drills. And so I think if we can get some sort of live drill or drills where we can maybe take a half a day again in the courthouse and practice not just thinking through what you would do, but actually doing it, I think that would be a good next step.
Were all your deputies involved in the previous, or was it just courthouse staff and some of in your
In the one we just did.
the one you just
So
did?
what it was is it was courthouse and HHS staff were invited. There might have been some from Pine Valley. I'm not sure. I said it was okay, but that we're probably gonna have to do a separate one for Pine Valley. So it was mostly courthouse and HHS staff. And then the first portion of the training was the active shooter presentation, and that was done by myself and Chief Billy Jones from the police department.
Okay.
And then we followed that up with a stop the bleed training that was done by Darren Gudgeon, Amber Birch, and Jeffrey Even. So
responding after the
Yep.
aftermath
Yep.
of.
yeah,
that's
and actually we had a few people leave before the stop the bleed training, but most of the group stayed and watched the stop the bleed training. So I think that was a really important follow up to the active shooter presentation.
Okay.
Helpful that the courthouse was closed. I think that more people attended this one than the one that was held years ago because of the fact that the courthouse was closed to the public. So it gave every office a chance to be there. So that was critical, and it was, these guys did a just incredible job with it. Very good, very engaging, and
It's good. So, I mean, I think what we were talking specifically about, that was something that came up sort of as an aside, but what about active shooter training for your deputies? That's, I think, where I'm most interested in.
So I guess, and that was kind of in my plan for that.
Mhm.
I kind of looked at it as two parts: is we need to train the county staff, but we need to train my deputies as well. So
Right.
what I would like to do, and what Billy and I were discussing, because we trained together, our departments trained together pre-COVID, was that we're going to start trying to do a yearly active shooter training through the departments, like we do defense and arrest tactics, like we do firearms, and start getting that worked in. Additionally to that, and I mentioned at the last meeting, the FBI through Alert puts on trainings they have probably half a dozen different active shooter trainings, and one of them being Alert Level 1 active shooter response. So what I'd like to start doing, Aaron's attended that. There's a handful of people in the department that have. There's a lot that haven't, and I would like to start getting them in. It's a free training in a sense of the training cost is nothing, but they're usually held in Janesville, Milwaukee, Waukesha. So, and
So
it's
there's
a two,
staff
and,
time and
and
there's
it's a 2-day
driving
training.
time and
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a 2-day training, so there'll be driving time and a room likely, but
Right.
I think for us, looking at the trainings that are going to be hosted this fall, we're probably going to only be able to afford to send one person at a time. So there's 3 trainings in 3 months in the fall.
So I guess that's where I think we come in, is, figuring out how we can advocate for any kind of funding to do this. So if you want to come up with like as you suggested with the judges, come up with a budget so we have
Yeah.
some numbers, some solid numbers to know, because I mean, I think this is it's important.
The
So we'll have to
in-house
figure
training,
something out.
the in-house training has a minimal cost. It depends on how in depth we go. If we use simunition rounds, we have our own simunition guns now. So if we go with the route of simunitions, There's a little bit of cost in that, but I mean, you can go from walk-through drills all the way up to full-scale exercises where we're shooting back and forth at each other with marking rounds. So
Okay.
there's a little bit of cost, but we still have training budget left as well. So
So Lieutenant Knable was your primary training person, is that true? No?
kind of split. It would depend on the discipline. He was, I guess, kind of the coordinator where a lot of the training requests went through him,
Mhm.
but I primarily handled firearms for the department. Aaron handled that, and
I was
so
just,
split
since this
roles.
position is open, I just was wondering how you
Yeah,
guys are just taking it on
we're
yourselves.
taking it on ourselves.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So question, I'm gonna put the plug in here for the active shooter training for the telecommunicators again also. I know you're doing the field training, but making sure that the telecommunicators get that understanding and get that practice and get that training also, because they're the ones that are gonna be getting the initial call stuff, and there's good training for that.
Yeah, and actually on that topic, two items. Aaron brought up one. We just had evac training, and one thing we did, unfortunately, we only did it for one of the sessions, but it was kind of a thought as we were going. We started bringing our dispatchers out to the track and letting them dispatch for the pursuits, for the high risk stops. And the feedback we got from that was that, wow, this is great. We're actually, instead of just waiting on the other end of the radio and not knowing what's going on out there, we actually see how busy you guys are when we're dealing with this. So I think in that we could do that with an active shooter scenario as well, as bring a dispatcher in, and so they can kind of get feedback and hear the communication. But additionally, we just sent 2 dispatchers to tactical dispatch training up in Green Bay, and they loved it. I mean, they were dealing with Brown County Communication Center and their mobile command center, and like doing huge mock scenarios, natural disasters, active shooters, stuff like that, and that sounds like a worthwhile training that maybe we should invest into other people as well.
Sounds good. And that's a lot of progress in a month, so thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really important, but.
I do have one item actually from the sheriff's report that I forgot to mention. You guys had requested we do a survey.
Oh, of what employees,
Yeah.
whether
So
they're interested in,
Aaron conducted a survey in as far as what they're interested in,
benefits wise, whether it's
benefits wise.
bonus.
And it was pretty
or-
evenly split between better insurance plan and pay raise. There was a small.
What were the
percent-
questions that you asked specifically?
Pull up, but the question was worded such as, you had to make a choice, which one item would you prefer as an employee of the Richland County Sheriff's Department? The options were lower deductible insurance, wage increase, one-time bonus, or more vacation time. And like Sheriff Porter advised, it was pretty much split. Like the thing is 45% was for pay raise, 45 for lower deductible insurance, and then there's a handful that were for the one-time bonus.
Bonus. Okay, that's helpful to know. So if you could actually just send me that in writing, like, oh, I think that would be good as we move into the next week's discussions. All right, so Darren, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about on the emergency response plan as far as? Otherwise, we'll move back to just your emergency management.
Yeah, I apologize.
Department.
I had some stuff.
It's okay.
Got away from me. So I did drop some
Microphone.
stuff.
Oh, you did.
Into it.
Well, look at that.
Not sure if you're gonna be able. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see it up on the screen though. Didn't get it in time.
Which one are you talking about? The basic plan document? That's where you want to start?
So there's 2 pieces in there. One says Richland County Basic Plan, Table 1, ESF Overview.
Yep, I see it.
Okay, so I guess we could start there.
So is this the plan you're updating?
Yeah, so going back when emergency government first started, so you'd be going back in like the 1960s, there's always been some kind of an emergency response plan or an emergency operations plan. And that has evolved over the years. And Richland County has kind of maintained what's called an emergency operations plan. And it uses annexes, and annexes define what departments will do during an emergency situation. And after the September 11th, 2001 attacks, the federal government changed everything and they put out a couple of different presidential directives. One was the National Incident Management System, utilizing that to handle large scale events. And it was also requested that counties and states and municipalities follow suit. And so with that, it changed the emergency operations plan to what's called an emergency response plan. And inside that are what's considered emergency support functions. So up until 2019, or even to the current, I should say, we're still operating under that emergency operations plan mindset of public health duties and the sheriff's duties and highway duties. But realistically, especially for Wisconsin being a home rule state, that disaster and the jurisdiction, the authority having jurisdiction is at the local level, so the town, the village, the city. So the idea of using the National Incident Management System and following the National Response Plan idea is going from annexes to emergency support functions. So we started in 2019 redoing the complete emergency operations plan, converted it to a response plan. COVID hit, kind of took things over. But what was good about COVID in this process is that it allowed us to test some of these plan theories and see how they could integrate them. So in particular, if you look up at the screen and in your folder, ESF 6, and ESF stands for Emergency Support Function, Mass Care, Emergency Assistance, Housing, Human Services, and then ESF 8, Health and Medical Services, which is public health, medical support activities. We actually utilized those two ESFs for the last 2 years during the pandemic, public health, myself, and it worked really well because with the emergency support function, the idea is behind that is what resources does the county have to bring to the table in support of a municipality or an entity in their response to a situation, in this, of course, this time being a pandemic. So we get 2 years to update this, and we were granted an extension on that because of the coronavirus. So I have to have this updated and turned into the state, and this will also go on to onto FEMA, an adopted emergency response plan. So I thought today's committee meeting would give me an opportunity to share with committee members one of the things that we've been up to for the last year and a half, besides pandemic response.
And when do you have to have it done?
It'll be, I hope to have a draft to the county board in September.
So it will
this
need to be
committee in
approved by
September.
this committee in early September?
Yep.
Okay.
Next meeting, I'd like to have some kind of a draft made available for public comment, but we're not quite there yet.
So this is just a small section of the plan, I'm assuming, since it's only 2 pages that we're looking at.
Yeah, this is just the table of each support function, and I thought I'd just show you this because it outlines all the different support functions that the county would bring to the table if there was in the event of an emergency. So the very first one at the top, ESF 1, is transportation, and the lead agencies on that are obviously for us it's highway, and it outlines what highway is going to do or what they can bring to the table during a situation. ESF 2 is communications and warning, and that talks about our communication system. Obviously, we've got some upgrades and things that are changing there.
I have a question on that, actually.
Yeah.
So Barb asked me if it's possible to have a tornado warning system that's attached to our new tower project. And I was like, I have no idea. But I know many, like where I live, there's no way we would ever hear a siren in any because I don't live close to enough to any town that would have a siren.
Yeah, so it will be. Dispatch will be able to, because it goes off the paging system. So the sirens are tripped by the same mechanism as a pager for a firefighter or an EMT.
And they're included on our towers in the project as they are
Yeah.
now?
So,
She's shaking her head back.
so the individual villages are responsible for their sirens. I'll say that Cazenovia, we can trip by page. Richland Center, we can trip by page. Lone Rock, we currently cannot trip by page. They have to manually trigger their siren.
Right.
So they're working on making that upgrade.
What about the towers that are in a municipality, the ones that are just up?
They don't have sirens
No.
on them.
So at some point,
Yeah, there's no,
maybe we could do something like that, but not now.
Potentially, I mean, it would depend on whether the tower could handle that equipment and whether that equipment would
Yeah.
interfere with.
Well, and I guess my question is, if you're going to put a siren on a tower, how many people are going to hear that?
right. I
And
just,
You can't hear any of them now. so
Right,
then-
and I think that's why they do weather alert radios. You know, that people have weather alert radios for that information that can be sent out, because you could,
But how many people actually do, I think is the question.
Right,
I mean, you
and-
should, right?
Whether-
Is it our responsibility to, but it was just a question of,
Right.
well, if we're putting these towers in different places now, we're gonna be adding at least a couple. Would that help? I don't
Good
know.
question.
I
We don't need to talk about it now, because it's not on the agenda, but.
Well, I think that, excuse me, but I think that we should somehow make this known, because the people who have contacted me, since we can't hear any sirens in our little area, kind of assume when we're talking about a public emergency system that we're spending $8 million on, they're kind of assuming that that includes tornado sirens.
Yeah,
So I guess in theory, if a township wanted to centrally locate a siren in their jurisdiction, we could, or multiple, we could trigger it with the system.
right. And I guess that was I'd like to just back up for a second. I misunderstood your question, Melissa.
Oh.
I thought you were asking me, will this system do the same thing as the current system is as far as activating them? So I apologize. The new system will still activate the sirens that are in place. A countywide system, I think we would be better off working with individual municipalities and, you know, putting sirens just all over the place in our area, in our county, with valleys and hills and deep gullies. That sound is going to bounce all over the place and really cause a lot more confusion. So, a good point to that, but again, I apologize. I didn't realize you were asking about putting sirens on our towers.
It was just a question that she was asked, and she asked me, and I was like, I don't know. So, all right. So moving on, did you have more to talk about the next document that's in our?
Yeah, so just looking at these, you can see all the different emergency support functions, from public works to firefighting, emergency management, mass care, resource support, health and medical, search and rescue, oil and hazardous materials response, ag and natural resources, energy, public safety and security, short-term community recovery mitigation, and external affairs, which is PIO. So when we have a situation where a municipality, whether it be the city, village, or town, their village president, town chairman, mayor declares an emergency, or if we at the county, which we have county administrator and the sheriff are the two individuals that can declare emergency at the county level, then all of these support functions come into play, and then county agencies would be requested to support in any way. Most of the departments that provide support, it's highway, law enforcement, public health, HHS, zoning, land conservation, UW extension, EMS, and emergency management. But there could be situations where it's a really large scale event where other departments might have to come into play. The second document that is in your table, it's there's no label to it. It's just a grid that I've been using to track our progress on these ESFs and the basic plan. And so as you can kind of look down through here, we have 3 ESFs left that we are currently working on, and that is the search and rescue, the energy, and then the ag and natural resources. All of the other ESFs have been shared with the department head that has a lead responsibility, and we've obtained their signatures along with Clint's signature. So we have 3 left. And once those are done, then I'll go to those department heads again. We review them. If they're good with it, they sign off on it. I'll take it to Clint, sign off on it, and then I'll have a draft of our new emergency response plan for the county, hopefully at next meeting.
So you'll send us the draft ahead of time to read so we can have the full discussion.
Yes, I'll try to do it not the morning of your committee meeting.
Okay. Well, it just makes it a little easier for discussion, but yeah, we get it. Busy times.
The goal then would be to take all of August, for everybody to review it, and then have it approved in September
In
county
September.
board meeting to then send by the 30th of September.
That sounds great. All right. So then 9B looks like it's your expenditures.
Yep. So if you look at the expenditure guideline, Fund 10, 5241 is emergency management. And through the month of May, because I do not have June's reports yet, we've spent 43% of our budget at $31,355 is our total expenditures. If you look down there, most of these expenditures are workman's comp claims, truck and command post insurance. Telephone is a little bit over, but there's, I believe that has to do with us switching over to FirstNet and maybe some of the credits that have to come to play with that. But the majority of the emergency management budget, if you look at it, is spent on personnel and insurance. There's not a lot of money in there for response.
Doing
So
everything else, yeah.
I get really creative during response. The other budgets that I put in there for you, it's Fund 49, Local Emergency Planning Committee, that's at the top. And it's under 5243, Emergency Planning Committee. And the Emergency Planning Committee is the LEPC, which is mandated by federal law.
Mhm.
And again, very limited budget in there. You can see that there's really nothing put aside in there it's bare bones, I guess is what I'm getting at. The service on machines line, you'll see that it's $282.89. That I have to go back and get it corrected because it should have been split between emergency management and ambulance, not the LEPC budget. So that expenditure needs to be corrected. Otherwise, the bulk of the expenditures in this budget are the hazmat team. Richland County is a part of a 4-county hazmat response team, and that's what we do to support the team. And then the other piece is our hazmat planner that we have, John Hyden. Yep.
So it looks to me like everything's pretty much on track. for the
Yes.
year. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, I apologize both to MIS and the committee for not having these documents in play, and thank you to the sheriff for sending me a text message to get me out of my OODA loop and remind me that
This
I'd be
meeting
upstairs.
just like creeped up out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, it's this Friday. In my mind, it was next Friday.
Yeah,
So
mine
we're
too.
all there. So no worries, man. We're good. Okay, so that brings us to item number 12, resolution regarding PSAP grants. So I don't know if there's someone who wants to explain it a little better than me.
I can if you'd like.
Sure, go.
So I did send a document to Barb and she's loading it up also. So here's Act 26 provides $6.x million of funding to PSAPs. There's some pretty strict guidelines that have been put in place. One is you have to have only one PSAP per county will be given that award. And so the counties need to identify who that PSAP is in their county. Richland County makes that pretty easy. There's one PSAP. Public Safety Answering Point, that's your 911 center. All right, thank you for clarifying the acronyms. So this is for the next generation 911 funding. And this funding, so first of all, we need to get that resolution through. I think that's going to be very important. There's a draft that Wisconsin counties came out with, and Barb is loading a draft that Department of Military Affairs Office of Emergency Communications put out. We need to get something to the county board, I think, to get this done this month.
I would, yeah, that would be my preference to
Okay.
approve it today to go to the county board.
So I guess, and looking at that piece of it, who do we have work on that? Do we take these? I kind of like the language where it talks about the DMA code on it, so we can identify that. But
So as long as you're sure that either one of these will fulfill the criteria that, so essentially we as a board need to approve this resolution so that we qualify for the grant. It's a piece that you have to have in place before you can apply for and accept the grant that will be hopefully coming to help us pay for our PSAP.
I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But yes,
So, so I don't have as long as either one of as long as the language in either one is, we are sure is what whoever is approving these grants wants,
okay.
makes no difference to me. I mean, the other one has a few other like details in it, but I don't know that maybe we could add a whereas with the administrative code from this one into the one that the WCA put out.
That would be fine. I think that'd be fine. So I did grab this one because this came directly from,
There should be in there now, Bob.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so everyone should be able to see in your iPads the one that says, I mean, it's called 12 resolution PSAP grants. So what I would suggest is we could add, so I will make the motion that we approve this resolution as written with one amendment that says, whereas Wisconsin Administrative Code DMA 2.03 requires that each county designate a public safety answering point as the designated public safety answering point, in quotes, to be eligible to apply for grants in that county. And so I would say we could add that after I suppose after the last whereas, between the last whereas and the now therefore be it resolved. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So would anyone like to second that motion? All right, second by voice. Any questions or comments?
So you're going to be filling out the grant, once this gets passed, you fill out the grant request?
So what happens from here? Well, I said we need to finish this. The motion on the floor, is that?
Or is this a question pertaining to whether you want to approve this resolution without knowing what he has to
that's fine.
say? Okay.
Pretend I didn't say anything.
Yeah, well, let's approve I mean, well, it doesn't matter. I think we can have the
fine. I just
discussion.
wanna make
Yeah,
sure.
go ahead and have the discussion.
So the grant application has not come out yet. It's getting finalized through Office of Emergency Communications. We expect that out in July. So coming up in the next couple of weeks or within this month is when we're anticipating to have that out. That grant application, I know what it's going to include because the committee I serve on with the state set those guidelines. So some of the things that we want to make sure we have in place are this resolution, that's going to be critical, that we have the EZNet agreement in place is going to be very important, that we have a COOP plan in place for the PSAP. COOP is a continuity of operations, so if something goes wrong, what do they do? Where do they go? What are the steps? So that's going to be very important to have in place.
Do we have that?
There's a county group.
And is the PSAP, is there a section that includes the PSAP? There is? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Does that qualify?
Yeah, well,
Is
that
it
needs-
part of a larger plan?
Right, that should be looked at to make sure that it's accurate. I don't know the last time it was looked at. That'd be really good to have reviewed here to this.
So who will do that?
I'd be willing to work with the reporter on it.
Okay. I always like to make sure because otherwise someone thinks someone else is doing it. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
The other thing we're going to see in this is the GIS piece of NG 911 and 911 mapping. Is how does a new address or a new point get into the system, get sent to the PSAP, to the mapping, and then if there's any errors or any corrections that the telecommunicator sees, how does that go back through the process for correction? So that is something that I know is going to be on the list. So these are things that you're going to want to be ready for. One of the other things that Richland County is already doing is there will be a requirement for the telecommunicators or the PSAP to be EMD certified, which is emergency medical dispatching. Richland County already does that, so that box is already checked off. The nice thing about this grant is it will cover pretty much everything from when the person tries calling 911 all the way to the point where they're ready to hit the button to send services. So that's any training, that's any maintenance agreements, that's any funding, that's any computers, that's whatever. Phones, what do you need in the next 2 years to take someone's call and send them services? EMD training, it'll take care of that. It'll get all your recertifications. So I think it's really important to start getting that list of things together.
Does it cover the console, cost of the consoles that were,
The consoles are radio. Those are RF.
okay.
That's different than handed calling, yes.
I guess, so that was going to be my argument too. Well, our dispatch consoles that's how we push the button to get services to where they need to go.
Right, and I know what you're saying. The grant will specify the line at RF.
Okay.
So when you're ready to press that button, that's where you can consider the grant stopping. Everything up to that point, getting those services to the people, EMD services, phone services, communication services, whatever you need, mapping, whatever.
So it will potentially cover, would it cover contract, if we have to contract GIS? Does it cover to get these things entered into the,
So
addresses and whatever that
exactly.
you guys were talking about earlier?
Right, and that's an excellent question. So the short answer is most likely. The second answer is there's a second grant program coming out after this that will be quite competitive. It's 1.6 million just for NG 911 grant funding. That application process is not out yet. We have gone through the criteria for that, working with Wisconsin Land Information Association to set those standards. But that one covers, is planned to cover maintenance agreements, it's staffing, contracts to get your standard up and ready for NG 911. So yes, there is that second one available.
The problem with that is timing. I'm right next to the mic. Okay. The problem with that is timing, because we cannot upgrade Spillman till that mapping is upgraded. So that's fine, but then Spillman can't be upgraded. We're at a catch-22 right now.
How do we,
Wait for the grant, that's fine, but your Spillman doesn't get upgraded, and we can't do certain things with Spillman until the upgrade is done, and Spillman won't support us because the upgrade's not done.
when are the grants expected to be delivered?
So I don't know about the GIS one. I know the application process is coming out in July.
Yeah.
For this one, we then have to go through the award process, which is
Right,
going
so
to
when
take a couple of months. So I would say later this year. I don't know exactly what that date's going to be until we see. Part of the question is we don't know how many people are going to be turning in the grants to know what that review process is going to be. So after we see what that application.
And when you
process-
say we, you're talking
Sorry.
about your function on a separate committee at the
Yeah,
state level,
I'm
not
sorry.
this
Thank you.
body,
Yeah,
right?
thank you for clarifying. So yeah, I'm the chair of the state 911 subcommittee. It's a governor appointed committee. So yeah, so I apologize for the we confusion.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's the state side that I work with.
Okay, so just so that I have it in my head, in order for us to apply for and accept these grants, we need to make sure we get this resolution passed, and we need to make sure our coup plan, take a look at it. And is there anything else that we need to have in place that is not already in place?
The EZNet agreement, I think, is going to be really critical to get that started, get that signed.
Who would do that?
I-
You, again?
I have the agreement.
You do, okay.
I just haven't-
And I'm assuming that's something that has to go through corp council if it's an
Well,
agreement?
the nice thing is I use corp counsel to write that agreement with the state.
Okay.
So he's very familiar with it
All right.
at this point.
Okay. And that's it then? There's nothing else that we would need to have in place that we don't already have?
The other thing is we want a flow of how the GIS data gets into the system, into the 911 system, and how errors come back out. And I've talked with Sheriff
Okay.
Porter about
So
that.
someone is making that evaluation?
That's something has to be sorted out. And it's not critical, but that's going to be points on the application. And we want to get as many points on this as we can, as fast as we can.
Okay. All right. So I just want
Those
to
are
make
the
sure that
keys.
everyone knows who's doing what.
And wherever I can be help on this, just let me know.
Okay. No, yes, Supervisor Severson.
Would this be a physical piece of equipment or just like infrastructure?
So it will not handle staffing or buildings, but pieces of equipment, definitely. I'm not sure what the age of your audio recorder or your recorder is,
Fine.
or if it needs upgrades, or if it has a maintenance agreement on it, or if it, yeah.
Maintenance
So-
agreements kill us. so-
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And this is something that we were real trying to make sure we put in very clearly into this grant project. What does it take to run your 911 center? When a call comes in, what are all those expenses other than labor, personnel, and new buildings? What does it take? Do you need security in there? Is that cameras? Is that door locks to open doors to keep it secure? All these things, what does it take when you sit in your center to make that work? And that's what we need a 2-year budget on, so we can start applying for this grant. It's huge. It's huge opportunity.
So infrastructure, I'm considering like wires in the ground that are bored that connect to a tower to cover all that stuff.
That's infrastructure, and that's RF. That's radio communication for boring wires. So that's after the call comes in, so that isn't that.
Pick up and push 911. What's the process that phone goes through to get to dispatch?
Right, so when they call 911, that call is going to go to a dedicated trunk provided by some phone company or some service provider. And then when it hits that trunk, how does it get to the 911 center? And that could be a fiber connection. So if the current program you're using right now, Zerker, if they need upgrades to make sure that traffic comes through, we need to know what those costs are, because it'll cover some of
Okay,
that.
that's my question. was
Right.
kind of
Right.
infrastructure type.
Yeah, so what does it take to get that call in? If Zerker needs an upgrade, let's find out what that is. Let's get that included.
What if we were to change that program from Zerker to Motorola?
I would say get those prices and show the reason for it. But now's the time to start getting that, because this grant's gonna come through really quick.
Short turnaround
And
time.
it's gonna be a fairly short turnaround. We were granted the money, and it takes time to get through the legislature and all that process. We finally got the money released and the process released in June. It's taken over a year to get it to this point. So when it happens, it's on a 2-year biennium, which ends next July. So we need to really look at that 2-year project.
Other question would be, Madam Chair, I guess, would be, is there any county matching dollars that have to go into this grant in order to accept it?
Yes, there is. That we get to set that amount. I think the maximum it can be, and I have to look at the documents. I think the maximum we said it was 20%, but we have the right to bring it lower as the subcommittee. We can make those recommendations. That we set that rate because we don't know how many requests are going to come in. So if we get a lot of requests, then that number is going to have to stay where it is. If we get few requests, then we can lower that number because we want to expend these funds. So that's the question. I think we're set at a max of 20 right now, though.
How do you suppose that we fund this then, if it's a match of county dollars, when we're proposing to cut 350 from sheriff's department budget?
So my argument to that is going to be, if you're planning to cut a budget, you still have things you need to do. And this grant will cover some of those things you need to do. Training for the telecommunicators. Every one of the telecommunicators is EMD certified, and every year they have to do 12 hours of a recertification. This would cover some of that. So you already have some budget money there for this. That's the money you want to use to put in your match to get a whole lot more.
Did you have a question?
This grant would have a finite number of dollars, right?
Yes.
So what happens if we decide to do this and all of a sudden every community in the state tries to get this grant money?
Well, we appreciate, they understand that every community in the state isn't going to happen because only 72 are allowed to do this. Only one PSAP.
One piece up.
Exactly. Only one PSAP per county. Exception is this Milwaukee. They've got a little different rule there. Only one PSAP per county is allowed for this funding. So we've already limited it from 112 to 115 PSAPs down to 72. 2 years ago, we went through a huge grant project where we replaced 911 equipment, the computers basically, in the majority of the PSAPs in the state of Wisconsin. So that heavy load is already covered. We don't know what the numbers are going to be. We don't know what the grant numbers are going to be, but with only with limitation of 72, and a lot of the equipment's already been replaced, we think we've got a really good window of some good opportunities here. We're also anticipating the legislature to continue making this a revolving fund so that once we get this and get it going, we're going to see this every year. If you're familiar with the Police and Fire Protection Fund, that's a fund, if you look at your cell phone bill, there's 75 cents that goes to police and fire protection. That's the money we've tapped into on the state legislature side. So it's money you're already been paying into this fund. We've finally gotten to that point where we can start pulling that money out and get it back to the 911 centers.
Darren, did you?
Yeah, I guess just a couple questions. Is it federal funding?
This is not.
It's
This
state
is
funding?
all state funding coming out of your cell phone bills.
Okay, and the second piece is, so there would be any supplanting issues then?
Exactly.
Okay,
Supplanting
so
will not be an issue.
So then to answer your question, you'd be basically offsetting cost. You could use this and your budgeted expense. If that makes sense. Right, yeah, it's not something that you have to worry about supplanting.
Correct. Yes.
So that's helpful with a match.
It is definitely.
Yeah. And then the last piece is, do you know if it's going to be issued through DMA and the E-grants, Wisconsin E-grants?
It'll go out through e-grants. DMA is handling it, and I know that they're hiring some grant specialists to manage that part of it.
Okay.
All right, so are we ready to vote? So just to clarify, we're using the WCA language with the amendment of adding the whereas paragraph that includes the administrative code. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so make sure that that gets to the county board in July. That way it's all ready to go. All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 13, retirement recognition for retired Lieutenant Dane Knable. Yeah,
Your mic's not on.
Hello, there we are.
just,
So this was one of the future agenda items from the last meeting. I prepared a resolution.
Is it going on?
oh, we got plenty of mics.
How is this one working?
Yeah.
Good. All right, I placed it in your folder to view. And I would also recommend that we push this one through
To the
the
board.
county board for this month.
Move for approval.
All right, motion by Severson, second by Frank. Any other discussion? Is he enjoying retirement? Have you guys talked to him at all?
Yes, he's been working up in Viola a little bit and getting caught up on projects.
That's good.
Oh, he attended our EVOC training as well, so
Good.
got to talk to him there.
That's good. All right. All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Make sure that gets to the county board. All right. Item number 14, radio tower project updates. I'm assuming he's in negotiation with the vendors at this point.
We had a meeting, Clay and I had a phone conference with him, going over the contract, which has been sent to Attorney Wendell, with some of the concerns we have about the contract, and it's been sent back to Mike to send to GenCom to address.
Okay. So you guys have seen the first version of it, and so we're just in the process of the back and forth.
Yes.
So are we still anticipating sending a contract to the county board in July? Okay. And that, we don't have to approve the contract at this meeting. It's written that a resolution. Okay, yep. Okay. Anything else on that then? To our project? Okay, mapping radio system and squad updates. Did see we had a squad mileage chart in our, look at all that red. How does
The
that
never-ending,
happen?
never-ending cycle. Nothing really to report on squads. I think we have one that has some air conditioning issues again. That just was repaired for that, but it'll be under warranty. Yeah, our 2 new squads are slated to return or slated to be delivered end of July or end of June. So hopefully they'll be here beginning of
The
July.
2021 squads or these
These are the
2022?
2022s.
They're 22s. So,
So, and that was the,
so that would catch us up.
Yep.
So we don't have anything on order.
yeah, we won't have anything on order anymore, and the equipment for them starting to arrive. And
Remind me, are these Explorers or what are
These are
they?
Explorers.
Explorers, okay. And how are our Dodges holding up?
I mean, for the most part, pretty good. Those are the ones we've been having the air conditioner issues with.
But it's still
So-
under warranty.
But they're still under warranty. Yeah.
I mean, we got them knowing that we were testing them out, you know,
Yeah.
as to whether they're a good option or not. In your gut, are you saying, I mean, since we bought Explorers this year, I'm assuming that we don't feel the Durangos are as good?
Part of the problem with Durangos is they're small. And not in the sense like they're the same size as an Explorer, but you get inside of them. and
The
they are
interior
small.
is smaller?
There's no backseat area. If I get in, my knees are pressed into the cage in front of me. Like I can get in, but I'm also not that big of a guy, you know, relatively speaking. So when I get in and my knees are pressed into the cage already, it doesn't take a very big guy to.
So getting
in
people in and out,
You get
certainly if they're uncooperative, could be challenging.
so.
Okay, all right, just curious.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions on the squads? All right, is there anything else with mapping at all?
I think we kind of discussed that
Right.
quite a bit already. but
Right, yeah.
We need to we need to figure out some mapping things, not only for 911, but especially for Spillman with the, so that module that we agreed to purchase earlier in the year, where that's going to require some significant mapping stuff to happen in order for us to put that into place.
And is there an issue at the GIS level? Just say it. Where's the bottleneck?
Well, Lynn will be leaving us.
Right, but she's not gone yet, so what,
She's very
she's
busy.
retiring. She's retiring in September. So she has other things going on and this has
Yeah.
not been at the top of her to-do list?
That is my understanding.
Do we need to ask that it be put at the top of her to-do list? I mean, her supervisor.
Is that fair to what, to do?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean,
Lynn said she's interested and is wanting to help out wherever she can with this. I've talked to her a couple of times.
She'll get halfway through it, and then where are we at halfway through it in September?
well, the sooner we get started, the sooner opportunity she has to do it. I mean, are you saying you'd rather contract someone to do it now on the off chance she can't finish it?
I don't know. I don't know. That's my concern, is if we don't get it done, then it would,
You don't suppose she would step into the room right now, do you?
I don't know.
I can go ask.
Maybe I should go ask. No, yes?
I think maybe
You want
meet
to talk
outside-
offline with
we
her?
could meet outside of the meeting on it.
Probably a good idea, yeah.
I mean, I don't care how it gets done. Well, I do care, I guess, because if we have to contract it out, we have to come up with the money to do that. But if she can't do it, then we should know now rather than later. But if she can do it, I mean, can certainly talk to our county administrator to instruct her supervisor, which I assume that Mike is her supervisor, right? That to prioritize this, because if this is this catch-22, like we can't get it. I think we need to figure this out, right? This is important. So if you want to talk, you want to talk to Lynn?
I can talk to
Okay, and if she says that she doesn't have time or whatever, I think we need to get the county administrator involved and determine because I can't tell her to change her workload, to prioritize something. It needs to come from her
The
supervisor.
other part of that is though, we do not have the spec back that she needs to write to. We've asked for it, but we don't have it. And so we can tell her to make it a priority, but until Spillman sends us that spec.
So do I need to get involved with Spellman and say, or our county board chair or our county administrator to say we need this now? Because we have
We
a,
can try, but they have such turnover there that it won't do you any good.
But I guess to Barb's comment, that was gonna be my next statement is I can talk to Lynn, but I don't know exactly what I need to ask of her either. So,
We don't have it back. I sent that day that we met and talked. And I talked to Clinton about it and I sent Spillman a request, but I have gotten nothing back.
So the folder.
I'm stuck in the middle of everybody.
no,
'cause
I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
So the spec from Spillman, is that the GIS platform or the design of the mapping for the data set format?
It's part of the data set, yes, to what they need.
I guess I'm really surprised they wouldn't have a common data set, that they wouldn't be following a
We asked
standard
for
data
it.
set, but you do
Sent
need
it
it.
to us.
Okay, so that's the initial holdup right now.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess on that point, it would probably be a good starting point for us to reach out to our Motorola rep and see if we can get her on it. Because she would probably, sometimes it seems it's easier if we go through her to get it. So that would probably be a good first step as we reach out to her. Then we go to Lynn once we have what
Okay.
the spec is we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. A mess. Okay. Item number 16, future agenda items. One thing that I know we need to talk about is the strategic plan, included instruction for this committee to evaluate. Well, we will need to come up with a recommendation for how our county jail, whether we build a county jail, whether we contract out, whether we remodel, whatever. So I was gonna, so we'll put that on the next, we can't talk about it now. We'll put that on the next month's agenda and we'll have some discussions about what our first steps will be in that process. Supervisor Severson?
Would we be able to have on our agenda personnel updates? I know Health and Human Services always post that, and it's just information only, but I think it'd be helpful to know like who resigned, who we hired. That way we have a thing that we can just mentally know, okay, so this person's gone, so we got 2 spots open. Should we fill these? Should we not? We make that decision, not just.
Right. I mean, it shows us as a standing item, like that would just be on there every
Yeah.
month, and there may not be anything, or there, I mean,
Right.
it would be
If you
nice.
Look at
if
Health
there's
and Human
not-
Services,
Yeah.
when they put that on there for their thing, and they've got that listed out, and then it's also got all the open positions that are still filled, whether that's on hold or they're advertising for them.
Okay,
Just
so let's
helpful.
put that on. All right. Anyone else with future agenda items? Go ahead.
I suppose part is our hazard mitigation update. We have to have a public, like not a public hearing, but open to the public.
Mhm.
And that has to be done in September as well. Could we have that towards the end of August's meeting, just maybe temporarily adjourn and then come back and then just open up for anybody that wants to make comment on the mitigation plan?
I mean, as a part of our public safety meeting, just have
Yeah, since you're my home,
section. Sure.
committee, and it can be
Okay.
towards the end so that if other departments need
So-
to get out of here.
It would be the beginning of the first Friday of September or the first Friday of August?
August,
First-
because I'd like to have some time to incorporate any
Any
thoughts or
comments?
strategies that the public might share.
Okay. Yeah,
So, yeah, towards the end, I think would be. Yes, yeah.
sounds good. Okay.
Thanks.
Anything else? All right, with that, item number 17, adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Frank, second by voice. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.